Let's begin with a brief recap of the writing section of the exam. So you have two tasks in the writing section. Task 2 is the one that we are going to be looking at today. Here you need to write an essay of at least 250 words and you're given just 40 minutes to do it. Now remember, 250 words is not enough for a well developed essay. So I would strongly recommend you aim at writing at least 270 words. That's the minimum that you should be looking at. Now, remember when you're trying to write this essay, please keep in mind that you will be evaluated on four criteria, which is task response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammar. What do these mean? Let me simplify this for you. So this band descriptors are released by Cambridge and it's for all the public to see. I'm going to simplify it in very simple language. Let's have a look. Task response simply means the content of your essay. First of all, it should be well developed. That means at least 270 words, and your ideas should be supported. Now, how do you support your idea? Very simple. You can support it by giving a relevant example with the same. Along with that, you need to make sure that you've answered all parts of the question. Sometimes the question may have more than one part. Now, second, we have cohesion and coherence. This basically means how good is your flow of the essay. So, to have a better flowing essay, you should use linking words. For example, moreover, additionally, in addition to that. And your paragraphing should be perfect. So, paragraphing becomes nice when every paragraph has a central idea. The third criteria that we have is lexical resource. What a fancy term! And that's exactly what it is looking for, fancy terms, or you could say uncommon vocabulary. Along with that, remember, it's a formal essay, so your vocabulary should be fairly formal and your collocations should be apt. Now, the fourth criteria that we have, perhaps the most important, is grammar. It has two things under it. So, one is accuracy, which means your grammar should be accurate, the tenses should be correct, your prepositions should be correct, your punctuations should be accurate, everything needs to be flawless, impeccable. And the second part under grammar is the grammatical range. Now, that means range of sentences, which means you need to use a variety of sentence structures. For example, more complex and compound structures as compared to simple ones. Moving forward, we are going to be following the power writing process. This is the best way to plan and have a structure for your essay before you start writing. So, this is the best process that you can follow for any IELTS writing task. What does it mean? Let's quickly look at it. So, it simply stands for P for planning. That means your essay should be well planned. Spend at least 7 to 10 minutes in planning the structure of your essay. What kind of ideas would you write? Brainstorm all the ideas that you can possibly write in your essay. Now, after you've brainstormed all these ideas, you don't need a list of 10 ideas. The examiner just wants to see 2 to 3 ideas which are well supported. So think about which idea can you give an example for. After you've decided these ideas, you need to organize them into paragraphs. So decide which idea will I put in which paragraph. And finally, you can begin writing. So the writing part essentially just takes 25 to maximum 30 minutes. It's very simple. The more time you spend planning, the less time you're going to be spending revising and regretting. So after you've written, make sure you edit for grammatical errors and also revise your essay to ensure that you've answered all parts of the question, to ensure that there's no repetition of vocabulary, and to ensure that you have a few linking words as well. All right. Now, moving forward, let's look at what are the different types of essays that we have. So in IELTS, you can have 4 types of essays, which is a discussion essay, a problem solution essay, an advantage disadvantage essay, and an opinion essay. Does it sound too complicated? All right. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to take one theme or one topic, which is environment, and I'm going to show you how the same topic, environment, can be used to to build 4 different tasks. So we are going to look at an environment discussion question, an environment problem solution question, and also advantage, disadvantage, and opinion question based on the themes of environment. So that will really simplify how we essentially look at the 4 task types. What are the difference between the task types? Trust me, it's not that complicated. It's going to look a lot simpler once we do this. All right, so let's begin with the discussion essay. Here, what happens is you are given a theme, 2 contrasting views, for example, and you need to discuss both the views. You may or may not be asked to give your opinion after that. So here is a discussion question on the theme of an environment. So here you can see 2 opposing views. Some people think that view number 1, environmental problems are too big for individuals to solve. That's your first opinion. While contrast, second opinion, others think that the government cannot solve these environmental problems unless individuals take some action. So do you see what's happening in both the opposing views? One view says that individuals can't really do anything to solve such a huge problem, whereas the second view says that individuals do play a huge role and the government alone cannot do anything. So in a discussion essay, you will always have 2 opposing or 2 contrasting views, post which you need to discuss both of them equally and give your opinion sometimes. So for example, in this case, you are needed to give your opinion. Now, how do I structure this essay? Very simple. You can write a 4-paragraph structure for this essay, wherein the first paragraph is an introduction, post which you cover both the opposing views and followed by a conclusion. Now, moving forward to the second type of essay question which we have, problem solution essay. Here what happens is a situation, a problematic situation, you can see. Problematic situation is given to you. You need to find out why is it happening? What are the causes of this problem? What are the reasons? What are the elements? What are the factors leading to this problem? And also suggest some possible solutions, measures, suggestions. So synonyms, can you spot what's happening? They can use synonyms to modify the question. Let's see the example here. The world is facing an imminent environmental problem which must be tackled immediately. That is the problematic situation which is given to you. And then it asks you, why is this happening? So what does it mean? Why is this happening? Very simple. It's asking you, what are the reasons for this problem? What are the causes? What factors are leading to this? And the second question asks you, what measures can be taken to rectify this? Which means, what can people do? What solutions, suggestions can you recommend? Now, the third question type that we're going to look at. So yes, the structure of this essay. You can see, again, a 4-paragraph simple structure we can follow. You introduce the essay first of all. Then you can write both your problems. 2 problems, because the question is asking what are the problems in plural. So you need to write at least 2 problems in 1 paragraph. Post which you can write, again, 2 minimum, or you can even write 3 solutions and followed by a conclusion. All right. Next, we have the advantage and disadvantage essay. Now, what happens in this essay? It's slightly similar to a discussion question. Please do not get confused. Both are slightly different. All right. So this is going to present a 2-sided statement. However, you're not supposed to discuss both sides. You're only supposed to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the same side. So that is the main difference. Sometimes you may have this separate question attached. Can you guess what this question asks you to do? So think about it. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Did you think that it's asking you which is more in number? Let me bust that myth. It is not asking you which is more in number. Look at the verb they've used, outweigh. They did not use the word outnumber. So they are clearly not asking you which is more in number. They're asking you which is outweighing the other one. So which is stronger or which is beneficial, which means your essay must be equal. Please do not write an unequally balanced essay wherein you're writing more number of advantages or more number of disadvantages. Ensure that the number stays equal. All right. So here is An example of an environment-based advantage-disadvantage question. Nowadays, in most countries, multinational companies are becoming more and more popular, yet at the same time releasing a lot of emissions. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of these companies? When you look at the environmental perspective, please remember that it's focusing on the release of emissions. So, the advantages and even disadvantages that you write should be focused on environmental perspective. For example, now writing the disadvantages would be fairly simple. You can talk about the effluents or emissions which are being released both in the air and in the land or water from these companies. So that will give you two disadvantages. On the other hand, when you talk about advantages, again, talk about if if you can think about any advantages which these multinational companies are um, they have regarding the environment. Let me give you an example. So, for example, a lot of these multinational companies are now recycling their products or are aiming at reducing their water intake. So, think about the advantages which they pose in terms of the environment. Or, for example, you could say if they are including any environmentally beneficial practices. For example, if they are making sure that their factories consume less electricity, or if their factories are ecologically sustainable, or if their carbon footprint is not huge, or if they're including sustainable practices. For example, their infrastructure includes rainwater harvesting or greenhouses or any solar panels which inherently cancels out the disadvantages. So remember that please focus your essay on the environment perspective, not just general random advantages. For example, providing employment, we don't want to do that. All right. Now, moving forward, structure of this essay is going to be, again, you can write an introduction followed by an advantage paragraph. Here you remember that the question is asking you advantages in plural. So can I write one advantage? I should aim at writing two advantages. So write two advantages followed by two disadvantages and a conclusion. Now please make sure that your advantage and disadvantage paragraphs are separate. Do not club them. Otherwise, it may impact your band wherein paragraphing is concerned. All right, then let's move forward to the final question that we are going to be looking at, and we are going to be solving that. So, the opinion essay. Now, the best way to solve the world's environmental problem is to increase the price of fuel. Quite a controversial statement, I must say. To what extent do you agree or disagree with the statement? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples. So, in this essay, what needs to be done is first of all, you need to plan, and when you're planning, you should analyze the question. Look very carefully what is the question asking you. To what extent? What does it mean for you? To what extent? What do these words mean for you? To what extent? Indirectly, they're asking you not just how, if you agree, they're asking you how much do you agree? Do you agree a little, a lot? So think about it. What formal vocabulary can you use for saying a little and a lot? So on a scale, I would say you can strongly or completely, totally agree. Or you can somewhat agree up to a certain extent, up to a certain degree. Or you can be completely neutral, partially agree. And otherwise, you can also say, I somewhat disagree or I completely disagree. So please remember that the question is asking what extent, so your extent of agreement on a scale, how much would you say do you agree? That your language needs to answer this question. Otherwise, you would again score low on the task response criteria. Okay, then let's look at how I would solve this. Remember the power writing process. The first thing I would do is plan, wherein I think of all the reasons that I can come up with, right, for supporting this essay. So this is how my rough sheet would look like. You would get a rough sheet in both CBT and TBT exams. Please utilize it. This is how it should look like. Think about what am I going to mention in my introduction. So in your introduction, what you simply need to do, how do you write your introduction? you write a general statement. What is a general statement? Let me explain in very simple terms. Let's go back to the question once. If in one word I asked you, what is the theme of this essay? Or what is the topic of this essay? In one word, what would you say? Did you say environment? Perfect. So your general statement needs to be just a sentence on the word environment. For example, I could say, nowadays, the environment is facing an imminent threat because of so and so, or because of the human activities. Or in the contemporary era, the environment is constantly being threatened because of the human activities. So, just a general neutral statement on the word environment. After this, your sentence number two needs to paraphrase the question. Paraphrase the question simply means you take the question from here to here, the prompt, you rephrase it using synonyms. Let's do it together. So, for example, instead of the best way, I would say one of the best solutions for for the environmental problem that the world is facing is to let's say hike or augment the cost of gasoline, for example. Right? So what I've done is I've just used synonyms to write the same question. And finally, my third statement, which is thesis, what does this do? All right, let me explain very simply again. Question marks. Why did I draw question marks? Simple. Your thesis statement always answers the question mark. So go back, find the question mark in this question. Where is it? Right here. My thesis statement is going to be an answer to this. So simply, if I asked you someday, hey, what is your opinion? What would your answer be? You would give your opinion. I side with this, isn't it? So simply, your thesis statement is going to tell me how much do you agree or disagree. So for example, in this question, I'd be divided. I partially agree, right? So my thesis statement simply says, I partially agree because, and you can go ahead give your reason very briefly, because although this gives a short term solution, and then give the other side the other reason briefly as well. All right. So after I decide, after I have planned this essay, your rough sheet should actually not look like this. You won't be writing in your IELTS exam general statement, right? What you would be writing is a brief idea of the actual statement. So for example, my statement was that in the contemporary era, environment is facing a threat. So I would in my rough sheet write just environment. In slang, you can use that because this is your rough sheet. Nobody's going to look at it. Environment is, let's say I would write facing a threat, so that I don't forget it when I'm actually writing the essay. Perfect. So this is actually how my rough sheet would look like. So introduction, I would write increasing the price of fuel can reduce pollution. However, up to an extent, that's my opinion. And then my two and three here are my body paragraphs. So my second body paragraph, I'm writing one reason which supports this because I'm partially agreeing. It forces people to switch to alternates. That is my reason, yes. So because it forces people, eventually it makes sure that the pollution level or the emissions go down. And in the third body paragraph, I'm going to write the opposing view, which is it, on the other hand, it worsens poverty because all the commodity prices are increasing because you've increased the price of fuel. So all the commodities are being transported using this fuel. Any grocery that we buy is being transported, which means that all the prices have gone up, and the most impact is on the backs of the lower middle class or the poor people of the country, and it's worsening poverty. So that's why it's not a good idea. And in conclusion, what I'm going to do, remember, summarize both these points again. I'm going to summarize them, and you can go ahead give a suggestion. So governments should educate people so that the first point, the alternates, they can switch to them of their own accord. They're not being forced to do that. So they are, and also you need to subsidize alternative fuels. Otherwise, even though people may want to switch, they may not be able to afford to switch. So the government needs to do two things. You can go ahead, give a solution. Remember, in your conclusion, it is extremely imperative that you write your opinion again. You restate it. So I will restate it in my conclusion as well. All right, then. Remember, if you are still confused on your thesis statement, you can begin it with any of these statements. So, right now, I have an opinion essay, which means I can use number 1 or number 4. So, for example, I can say this essay agrees that raising or increasing the augmenting the price of fuel may not be or would definitely not be or would definitely be a good solution in certain cases only or up to a certain extent. It's a partial agreement. Or number 4, I can say, in my opinion, it has some benefits and some drawbacks, so I partially agree. Or I opine that it is partially beneficial. Or I support the notion that it is partially beneficial. So I'm going to give my opinion in my thesis statement. All right, then. Let's look at how, after planning, my final essay looks like. I'm going to show you a sample band 9 answer. Here it is. Let's go through the introduction briefly. Here you can see I have written a general statement. Today, the Earth is facing a massive threat in the form of a climate crisis. So that's it. That's my general statement. And I've paraphrased, and it is believed by many that the most efficient way, question said the best way, I've written most efficient way to tackle the world's environmental issue, question said problem, is by augmenting fuel prices. That is my paraphrasing, right? And I've then given my opinion. Conservationists would deem this method to be effective. This is functional language. This really ups your score on vocabulary, so do try and use it. And I agree with this notion, however, up to an extent, and I've given my reason as well, as it would heavily impact, as it heavily impacts the livelihood of the poor people. All right, now you can see on the one hand, I've supported one side. I've also given an example. The Netherlands is one such country, right? And on the other hand, I have written against it. The obvious reason why it's not a better solution is that it worsens poverty. Perfect. And I have given an example. For instance, if this practice were to take place in India, there would be a massive spike in the number of families struggling to even afford food and household essentials. Now, look at the conclusion. Again, can you see what has happened here? Paraphrasing of the question. Increasing the price of petrol can certainly help reduce environmental pollution. My opinion to some degree. And then my suggestions. However, I feel that educating people about the ill effects of the overuse of natural resources and encouraging them would be a better solution in handling this issue, as it will not further deteriorate the life of the poor. Do screenshot this sample. It's a beautiful band 9 essay. Go ahead, read through it. Make sure you look at the vocabulary and the functional language, the examples, the paragraphing. Just go ahead, read it once or twice. You will get a much better understanding. So with that, I've come to an end of my video. Thank you so much for watching till the end, staying with me. And remember, if you want more such recently asked writing task 2 questions, you can find them on the Leap Scholar blog. Additionally, we have our own app on the Google Play Store by the name of IELTS Prep by Leap Scholar. You can download it. It has a list of free resources which you can use. And please download the app and join our Telegram community. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.